What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Red Room Podcast. On today's episode, I have a music legend. And one of my really great friends, Robert Berry. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing fantastic. Legend, for what reason? That's the thing. You got to come up with the legend for what? Loafer. For being a loafer.
Yeah, no. I was just like, Robert, just in my personal life, I was introduced to you through Mom.
Yes.
And through there, we've done a handful of songs and stuff like that. So Rob's my music producer. If you watch my YouTube videos, this is the guy that makes all the magic happen on the back end of things.
Your mom and I were raised sort of in the same recording studio, Tiki Sound in San Jose.
Yeah.
I worked for Grady, the owner, in college. And I actually recorded my first record when I was 12 years old there.
12?
I was the guys were seniors in high school.
Do you still have it?
I still have it, yeah.
Dude,
I don't know if you knew my dad had a music store.
No.
My dad sold the kind of equipment the Beatles used, right? Vox.
Yeah.
Vox amps and guitars. And these guys that were senior in high school thought if they got this 12-year-old 8th grade kid in his band, he'd get free equipment from my dad. Wow. So I never even played in the band, but these guys wanted to make a record.
Yeah.
So I went in there, like barely playing, this little Vox Continental organ. And Grady addicted me to recording. He said, that's a really good song. You know what it needs? A little drum break, doom, 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 and an organ. I said, well, who's going to do that? He goes, well, you're the organ player, right? 12 years old. I'm like,
sure.
Well, what I do? He goes, I just go like, do, 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 do. He didn't even sing. I went, do, 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 do. That's it. He said, well, that was easy. Wow. And we did it. And it's a great part of the song. And from then on out, I thought, well, making stuff up isn't that hard, is it?
Yeah.
Honestly, it started me because I had 8 years of classical piano and 2 years of jazz piano.
Wow.
Before that. So it was, actually I had the jazz piano in high school. So in 8th grade, I had 8 years of classical piano, started when I was very young.
Wow. Yeah. Like for piano for me, just like in my life, I was kind of thrown into, okay, let's do a couple piano recitals. And what I've like, just in what I've heard and kind of personally too, it's like when people are kind of like pushed into it and they're not like discovering it on their own, they kind of like build this like, I don't want to touch it. Yeah. So that's what happened with me. And then all of a sudden, like years later, I'm like, how do you play this song on the piano? Then you pull up YouTube and then there's the tutorial and you're like learning how to play it,
Yeah.
So, okay. So your dad owned this
music store.
It's just been in the family. Grandpa, same thing? Grandma?
He was a San Jose police officer.
So singing in the car with the radio.
Yeah, I'm well behaved though.
There you go.
Yeah, no, my grandparents had a ranch right next to Santana Row. And my dad...
ranch, and now it's all development. That's crazy.
Apricots and walnuts right there. And my dad built a house there when my grandma finally sold the property off to all these little houses. My dad built a house and kept one of them.
Yeah.
So I was raised on, his store was on Stevens Creek, right? What's there now? City's Florist? Winchester?
Yeah.
His store was where Big Five was. Oh. So I was raised there on Stevens Creek, basically, which is the center of the universe. Now with Santana Row.
Yeah. Yeah. No
So,
kidding.
Yeah. I was sentenced to music and I didn't know it. It was just, my dad had a band. My mom was a singer. Well, same as you.
Yeah.
You were sentenced to music in a lot of ways, and art and acting and the whole thing. You have this thing for it because, that's what goes on in life, right?
Yeah. Do you ever hear those studies where it's like when you first have a child, if you sing to them while they are young, they can pick up music quicker and easier and better in life? Have you heard of that? Or
I haven't heard of that.
Did your folks ever like sing to you when you were a kid, and then that kind of like brought you like into?
It's worse than that.
Yeah.
Right? My mom was so small that until she was 8 months pregnant, she was still in the band, and the band didn't know. So I was on, like they didn't tour them, but they played all the United States and stuff. But they were the favorite at the Coconut Grove in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And on the beach, like they have the shows now out there, the bandstand, they used to drag the bandstand out, and she'd walk out in her evening gown there and sing Frank Sinatra type tunes, big band stuff, right?
Was that was that the same stage as that? Or was
No,
that
it was different.
Or was that the one that they did the California State pageant
Probably the one your mom was on, yeah. And they used to
Yeah.
drag that out with the truck, I think, didn't they? Out
Yeah.
there? So I was on stage with my mom singing, and my mom sang all the time anyway. So I didn't have a chance. I mean, I can do two things. There is something else I can do. I shouldn't down myself because I can actually mow lawns too. That's it.
There you go. There you go. So you create this first little like album when you're 12. Where do you kind of like go off from there? You get into the band in high school? Like how do you get to where you are right now?
It's interesting, I think, because
all the people that you have performed with is just awesome.
I'm really,
it's cool.
Some of the biggest people ever in rock and roll.
Yeah.
But when I was 12, all the way through high school, I always worked with older guys, and they kind of drug me along. I had this one good friend who got me in my first band, Eddie Callahan, one of those seniors in high school, who always took me to the next band. So I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to learn how to practice in a band because they already knew. I didn't learn how to book gigs. They already knew. I didn't have to be a showman because they were the showman. I just played the organ back there.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do anything until I was a junior in high school. And that guy that always took me along left the band. He wanted to do more vocal stuff, and the rest of the guys wanted to do hard rock stuff, right?
Yeah.
He left the band. We had no front man, so I had to start singing.
Oh, wow.
And we got no gigs. We had no front man. I mean, it was a rude awakening. Oh, wow, I've been floating along. I mean, I was 12 years old making $50 a week in a band. That band played all the time.
Yeah.
That was a lot of money then for a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
My friends all had paper routes, let's say,
Yeah.
Make $150 a month if they're lucky, getting up every morning at 4:35 in the morning and throwing papers on people's porches. But I didn't have to do any of that, and I didn't have to develop or book or anything. And then as a junior, I didn't have a band as a senior. I didn't know what to do. As I did a solo album then. I wrote my first solo album, recorded it, went back to Tiki after all those years with Grady, because I recorded it at home at a 4-track, and recorded it at home. I took it back so he could mix it and put the professional reverb on,
Yeah.
And Grady said, "Where'd you record this? This sounds good." I said, "In my garage." He goes, "Your garage?" I said, "Yeah, a little TIAC 4-track with a PV, which is a PA thing, mixer. Not as good as what you have here for the podcast, right?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, you ought to come around more often, So in college, I was going into college. It was right down the street. I went to San Jose State University.
Yeah.
I started working for Grady. And I bought some keyboards, a Mellotron, which was the first sampler. It has a tape recorder for every note.
Yeah.
And it has violins, has choir, has flutes, and they're all real because you hit it and the tape plays the instrument, right?
Wow.
And he got me all kinds of sessions. I had learned a lot of instruments at home because my solo album, I did it all myself just because I was in my garage. I had a little drum set there and stuff from his band. And Grady started me doing soundtracks for people where I played all the instruments. And I just loved it so much. That didn't get me a successful band for a couple of years because I was still trying to figure that out. When another band came and said, "Look, we have these two guys. We know you have a drummer you worked with and you. How about we put the bands together?" And those guys are both kind of front guys. Great, let's do it. The band was called Hush. And Hush was a big band in the Bay Area. First, we got every high school gig because high schools used to have bands. And I learned how to be 50% of the vocalist and 50% of the front man. So when that front man left, I was ready.
Yeah.
And Hush got a BAMI, which was like an Oscar in California music scene kind of.
Yeah.
And from there, Geffen Records heard another solo album that I did that a friend of mine, Rob Fowler, who lives in Hollister, sent around to all the record companies without me knowing. And Geffen Records called me in 1985. The album came out. In the middle of 85, they called and said, "We like your record. We just played the cassette tape for Carl Palmer from Emerson, Lake Palmer." I went,
I wasn't joking, guys.
"Yeah, well, I
So cool.
had a good local band.
So
The
cool.
Hush was a good band." I'm like, Well, I don't know. I had a solo band, then I was sort of moving on to doing other things. You want to talk with him? I said, okay. I wasn't that impressed. I should have been, but I thought, well, this can't be this. And Carl Palmer calls me at sound check where you record.
Yeah.
And he goes, hello, this is Carl Palmer, because he has a high voice, you know? And I'm thinking, this is a friend of mine that I know, this guy.
Yeah.
I said, oh, yeah, hey, Carl. That was it. He goes, well, John Kolodner played me your cassette tape. Well, John Kolodner was the guy, Geffen, that wanted to sign me as a solo artist. I went, this is really Carl Palmer. Now, for those that don't know Emerson, Lake and Palmer, let's say, Emerson was the top, best, no one even got close to him, keyboard player in rock and roll. Incredible, right? No one's even close.
Yeah.
You'd have to be playing classical music to be a great pianist and keyboard player like Keith was. Carl Palmer was a drummer like Buddy Rich. He could play solos, anything. I mean, he was a technician. He had lots of lessons. He could do all those press rolls with one hand and, throw a stick up in there and catch with his teeth. All that. And he was incredible. So for me to actually go to England to play with these guys was, it was like right here, a big stamp that says, this guy's got to be good. I could have been lousy, but I was playing with those guys. So I had the stamp of approval. And from there, all the people that I worked with, the Sammy Hagars, the Ambrosia Band, Greg Kinn, our local hero guy here,
Yeah.
They all knew that I was capable because of Emerson and Palmer. Without Lake, I replaced Lake.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it happened. It was a stroke of luck that I did this solo album that my friend Rob Fowler sent out because I wasn't going to do it. I'm not a promoter.
Yeah.
That's one of my downfalls is I'm not a networker. You're a good networker. I'm not a good networker, It just worked, I'm addicted. That rule, the 10,000 hours, you spend your 10,000 hours a week on something.
We were just talking about this in the office at a meeting, literally.
That's the thing, yeah.
Yes.
It's supposed to make you really good at what you do.
Yeah.
Well, I started that before I was born, right?
Yeah. So you're already at like 100,000, many more.
Yeah, and in wood shop in high school, I built guitars and speaker cabinets. The teacher loved it. No one did that, right?
Yeah.
In my early bands, I built a little light system. I always owned the PA once I got it in high school. I loved all the wiring and all the stuff. I loved everything about it. Then I got my own recording studio. And even with Grady at Tiki, like, Grady, we have to get one of those. We need that. Oh, okay, let's get that. We got a piece of equipment. I kept having him get all this equipment. I was just addicted to everything that had to do with making music.
Yeah.
I still am.
So what was that like? Let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
What was that like going over to England? What was the first show you played with them, and where were you? And what was the scene and the vibe like? Are you walking out on stage and like hearts like in your throat being like, oh man, this is like really happening? Like what were those like what was that moment,
I got there, but I was skipping a whole piece because I thought, you're going to be bored with this. But when I got to England, we had Carl Palmer before Keith Emerson.
Yeah.
Carl Palmer had Ozzy Osbourne's keyboard player ready for us to try. And we tried just three of us. Nothing clicked. It was awful, right? And it wasn't that he was bad. He was really good, but it's just nothing special.
Yeah.
And then we came back to the U.S. and went to New Jersey and worked with a guy named Joe Lynn Turner. We went in there. Joe Lynn Turner was the singer for Rainbow, which was part of Deep Purple. You heard of the Deep Purple band.
Yeah.
And Alan Greenwood was involved in this thing, who was the keyboard player for Foreigner, who did Waiting for a Girl Like You and all that stuff. And he was the keyboard player, right?
Yeah.
Well, I thought, oh, this is going to be good. Joe was a singer. And there's something for singers called LSD, lead singer's disease. Have you heard of that? They all have.
I've heard of the other one.
Well, yeah. Well, think of David Lee Roth, from Van Halen. He's an idiot, right? So, I mean, that's kind of the epitome of LSD, lead singer's disease, right?
Yeah.
Well, Joe didn't have that, but he was definitely going to be the guy, and nobody else was going to be even share in being part of the guy. It was Joe, And Joe took me aside and he said, we're not going to be doing your songs. We're doing my songs. We start this band. I thought, Well, I'm nobody, right? I'm just, Carl's trying to do that. Okay, well, whatever. I went back to Carl, and Carl said, we're out of here. And we walked out the door, out there saying goodbye. We walked out. Carl said, we're not settling for that. So it actually all exploded. My first break went away with me just kind of tagging along, seeing what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in England, and the manager calls me and says, Steve Howe from Yes wants to talk to you. So this, I feel like this sounds like I'm bragging, but none of this is good news, right? Well, Steve said, can you come by the house? I really like your cassette tape. Sure. Now, Yes was gods to me. They were just the greatest musicians.
Great band.
Oh my God. So I go to Steve Howe's house, and he hands me a cassette tape of his with 2 songs on it that are not really great, but I hear a lot of possibilities because I'm a Yes fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he says, come back tomorrow about 2:00. Let me know what you can do with these. I'm like, I go home like 4:35. I'm at a flat downtown London, and I have my little 4-track recorder there with me just in case.
Yeah.
And I work out these arrangements with all these vocal parts, which I like to do, and you like to do that too, to these 2 songs. And he has a song called You Only Have Yourself to Blame. And I thought, you know what? The guy I just met, a really gentle soul, I only have myself to blame is going to be the song. I'm changing it. He's like blaming you. I'm going to blame myself.
Yeah.
Took it in the next day, played it for him. I had to do a couple of tracks to sing the harmonies a little bit. And he sat back. It's real quiet, right? Because nobody has worked on one of my songs that good since John Anderson did like Roundabout or something. And I went, you like it? He goes, that's fantastic. Let's hear the other one. So I'm thinking, oh, yeah, okay, got to prove myself. Okay, I play it, and I forget what the name of that one is right now, but he loves it.
Wow.
So the band was called GTR. Steve Hackett from the band Genesis, and something, these are ancient bands, but you know the names.
Yeah.
Had just quit GTR. Steve and Steve started GTR. They wanted me to replace Steve Hackett. So I played guitar and keyboards and wrote the songs with Steve. The singer in that band hated it that this new American kid that nobody knew anything about had at least a third of the power. The rest of the band had a third, but Steve and I mean, we were a team, right?
Yeah.
He harassed me so bad. When we were in the studio, he wouldn't let me even stand by the mic without him doubling my parts and standing by me and talking to me. And he just harassed me that I quit. I had no big break except for that I had written these songs with Steve. The record company loved it. They were going to put the album out. And I said, I can't live my life like this.
Yeah. People, when the ego stuff starts to happen, I'm like, dude, like I love working as a team. And but when people's egos like just start taking over the project or anything, it just absolutely kills all the creative
That's
vibe.
Right. And you know, if they can act like that once, if they have the gall, let's say, to act like that once, they're capable of that. And if you settle for that, that's going to be the norm. That's going to be where it starts, kind of. So it's going to get worse. So I quit. And I told the manager the day after I quit, and he was really mad at me. He goes, the record company, it was Arista, which is Clive Davis, big name, right?
Yeah.
Loved what you did with them. That's the only reason you sort of saved the band. Because when Steve Hackett left, they thought, well, what's this band going to do? I said, his name Brian Lane. I said, Brian, I don't want to live my life like this. Okay, it was okay. Well, it was Tuesday and Thursday. All right, we'll send you home. I'm really mad at me, right?
Yeah.
Calls me Wednesday. Keith Emerson wants to have lunch with you. He does?
Wow.
Now, I knew a lot about Keith Emerson. I thought Keith was going to, he's such a mad genius on the keyboards that he was going to kind of talk in equations and be like an Einstein. I wouldn't be able to really get along with him, right?
Yeah.
But I said, okay, just to meet him. And Keith talks to me, he goes, I really like your cassette tape. And Carl really likes your cassette tape. We don't want to do Emerson, Lake and Palmer. We want to do something new. And you have more commercial kind of thing like Asia, the band that Carl had.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, we talked. We had a couple glasses of wine, and he was so funny and so normal. I went, wow.
Yeah, like that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it was really easy. And he goes, well, that one 2 hour. He goes, I got to get home. But he goes, I just have one more question. I'm thinking, here it comes. He said, if we start this band and we tour, do you mind doing a couple of ELP songs? I said, I was raised on that.
Yeah.
I said, yeah. I mean, why would we leave your legacy behind? And why would the fans? He goes, great, okay. I get a call the next day. It's a new band going into rehearsals the next week. And Geffen Records, their company that wanted me as a solo artist that kind of started all this, heard about it. They flew out. I think we had 3 months to practice and get a few demos done. They flew out. They wanted this band. They signed us on the spot.
Wow.
You know, at that time, 1987, there was $1 million involved in the whole deal with the publishing and everything.
Yeah.
I went, wow. And I was writing most of the songs, right? So we divided everything 3 ways. I built a house in Los Gatos, right down the street here. It was a tremendous time in my life that gave me that stamp of approval. Nobody really knew about all the other stuff with Steve Howe and Don Aries or Joe Lynn Turner, who's still a great singer, you know. They didn't know about that because nothing came of that. But that's what you asked me.
Yeah.
I told you I was trying to cut that out.
Yeah.
But no, you got to push it, Blake, all the time. You're always pushing me.
Yeah. Wow. That's just so cool. I'm like lost for words because it's just.
And those are all old names too. I mean, now,
but like still for that time. I mean, just even today, they're huge. It's crazy to me how what I love about you is you had that drive and you did it, and it's just like the universe was like, here you go, you know, and just kept like opening up those doors until it like clicked, right?
Yeah. What is it? What is it? The Secret? What's the book?
Oh gosh, it's slipping.
You put it out in the universe. You know, you put the positive. You don't put the negative out. You're going to get it. You put the negative out. You put the positive out, and things come to you. You treat people well, and I always told people, I said, no matter what, I don't care if you're mowing the lawn, right?
Yeah.
Do your best work. Someone's going to notice. Could be 10 years down the line. They can say, that Blake always does his best work. We could use him. It just works. So that's sort of always been my theory, even though it was later in life that I realized the positive view I had because of my parents.
Yeah. Yeah. My Bobby's dad, my grandfather's a Bob. He, it was kind of like that whole thing with glass half full versus half empty and having that mindset of just positive thinking.
Was he part of cable TV?
Yeah.
I mean, he was a real believer in that when people said, forget it, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Look at the world now,
Yeah. That was him. He was at KNTV. Yeah. Channel 11. That was him.
Yeah.
So how did I was kind of talking to Mom about this last night. How did you two end up like meeting each other?
Through Grady.
Really?
Yeah.
Because she was talking about how you guys were performing at I think the Santa Clara County Fair, and then she was there too, and I think she opened for you guys or something like that, maybe?
That probably happened.
Yeah.
One of my problems is, or maybe one of my theories is, I don't really look back.
Yeah.
Success is a always changing goal for me.
Yeah.
And none of them I'm talking to you about feel successful to me. I had a top 10 record. That should feel successful. But no, I have an album out right now, a new album with my band Alliance. I have another one out next year. I'm writing. I mean, I'm always looking down the road, and I got to do at least what I did or better. But she was at the fair. Hush was playing at the fair. But I think it was actually at, I don't remember the first time, but, we were the same vintage.
Yeah.
And she took the classy route. I swallowed in the gutter for, with the nightclubs and the dirty rock bands and stuff. But I never did drugs.
Yeah.
I was never drunk. I drank a little bit, but always focused on the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, we've done a few things together. I've done a lot of things for her students.
Yeah. That was it. Yeah.
And she does a lot with Tom. So Tom does the big band stuff and all that too. So I don't do that.
Yeah.
I just didn't go that way. My dad did that.
Yeah.
And my dad had a guitar store and a piano store, I didn't do that either. I stayed in music, but I just went a little bit different from what they did.
So going from all of that, you now have sound tech.
Yeah.
How did that all come to be? And then what I think what's really cool too is kind of bouncing off the second question would be, because of your dad's store, you were around all of these instruments. Because I think the thing that blew me away the first time working with you was, okay, we're going to go and create this track. And I walk in and you have every single like instrument like that you can think of known to man. And I'm just like you and me. And then like, okay, go do your vocals. We'll lay down this track. Okay. And then you just start going and playing the drums and doing this and doing that and doing that and doing that. And it's just like, I'm sitting there just totally blown away by how like amazingly talented you are.
Well, I love it. I mean, you know.
So how did the whole sound tech, how that all start off?
I have to thank Grady for so much. Grady had a mainly country western studio when I started there and brought all the rock crowd in.
Yeah.
But he also had a big black clientele. So I was doing R&B stuff. But it started where someone would bring their band in and sing. Let's say some black singer doing a soul session, right? And they were really good.
Yeah.
But the bass player made a mistake. So Grady would say, why don't you, I know you play a little bass, why don't you fix that? I'd fix it, right? Because I was a fan of Motown and stuff. I just loved everything. Oh, okay. Then the country western sessions, he had this guy out of Nashville doing an album there, and he wanted a synthesizer to do the harmony stuff on the guitar. Do it on the synth. I was doing country. Grady taught me how to play country guitar, really smooth. I mean, so much, every style there was, I did because of Grady. Because in the 70s and early 80s, there were very few studios around. Mm-hmm. You know, you couldn't have done this, what you're doing right here even. You just couldn't have done it. You have to go down to a studio, you know?
Yeah.
He taught me every style, because he was back behind the board and I had the headphones out in the booth, you know. Mm-hmm. I had a drum set from my dad's band in my garage when I was really young. Mm-hmm. And I'd play that. And then my dad would bring a junk guitar home. And I took 2 lessons on it. I said, I don't want to take, like you're the piano, I don't want to take lessons. Why would I want to do this? I taught myself to play guitar.
Yeah.
And bass was natural because I like the Motown stuff. And of course, I love McCartney. The note choices were so different. I went, oh, that's interesting. My dad loved that. Because he would arrange for his band. So he loved the sort of arrangements that McCartney had a different deal going on, you know. Mm-hmm. It developed into something where Grady, I told you earlier, said, why don't you do the music for this guy? This guy wants to sing an album. Instead of bringing his band in, you should do it. Oh, I think they charged $150 a song for me to do all the instruments and then plus the studio time at the time, right?
Yeah.
So I'd make $1,000 anyway that week doing all the instruments. And that was pretty good. I was going to college.
Yeah.
You know? It just turned into something I not only really liked, but something where you could come in and instead of, I got this friend that plays great guitar, and he comes in and he plays great guitar. But you're the singer, you don't want great guitar all over the place, right? You want the right guitar. You want the foundation for your voice put in.
Yeah.
So I was the foundation guy. I could give somebody a really good rhythm track. They want to need the solo and stuff. I could do that. I had lots of piano lessons. It all meant something. I don't know. It sort of goes in and it comes out without me thinking about it now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was Grady that really got that going for me. The reason Soundtech started, which was the first part of your question, is after college, I said, Grady, I'm doing everything here. I'm here after college during the day. I go back practice with Hush. We play some gigs on the weekend, but I'm back after dinner, you know. At 8 o'clock, I'm here till 2 in the morning. I have to get up at 8 in the morning for college, whatever. I said, I want to be a partner. And he says, well, I don't know, you know. And I understand it now, but at the time I said, well, damn, I'm doing everything. I'm going to open my own studio, right? And what was kind of funny, and I've talked to Grady about this girl, Janine, was starting to hang around, and she played sax and guitar, right? And I didn't think much about it. And I opened Soundtech and I quit Grady, and I felt really guilty about it. But Janine was there, and she started playing guitar and sax and doing some sessions, and Tom Tomasello was there. He played some keyboards, and then Grady married Janine. He got married to her, but I always felt guilty that I left him, right? And I just last year, at his 95th birthday party, I said, Grady, I just got to tell you, I feel really bad about it. He goes, well, I never really thought much about that. I mean, you know, you have a great studio. Oh, what? And he goes, and I got to marry Janine. What? if I was there, that might not have happened because she wouldn't have the gigs there at the studio to kind of get the wheels turning in romance, you know. So it actually worked out the way it was supposed to work out. But in my complete life, everything about it, my main regret for all those years was that Grady did so much for me, and here I quit him and opened my own studio. And he never held it against me because he got to marry Janine. It's just been a fantastic relationship. She's a great musician. Anyway, I don't know how I get off on that, but that's how Soundtech started.
Got you.
So he wouldn't make me a partner, and he still won't.
So let me ask you this. How many instruments do you play? Like, can you list all of them off, or is this just keep going on and on, Energizer Bunny type? Boom, boom.
It's funny. I play the basic, guitar, bass, drums, and keyboards, I think, as good as I need to in any kind of music or session I need to do. Yeah. And that's only because you don't have to be Keith Emerson to make a record.
Yeah.
All right. You don't have to be that kind of player. You have to be the right kind of player for the song or for the instrumental. But because I majored in music in college, I had to play cello, I had to play violin. I played trumpet when I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
Tuba, trombone. You have to learn all the instruments because my backup plan was to be a music teacher. And the backup plan, I don't want to say was something I was dreading if it ever happened. I'm not a good teacher. I'm a manufacturer. I'm a builder, right? I like to give people possibilities. I say, well, what about, oh, you know, okay, to Motown, or how about, to rock, you know? And I can do it so fast to give them the possibilities. Like, oh, that's interesting. Then we develop that. That's what I like to do.
Yeah.
Choices, right?
Yeah.
And I built my whole life in music around choices. So being a music teacher isn't that. Here's ABC, and you need to learn ABC, and then you can go on. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Right? So that was the backup plan anyway. And again, because I ramble a lot and I talk fast when I get excited because we're talking music, I forget the question.
So with your own songwriting and music creation.
How many instruments?
Oh, that too.
The rest of them are? Okay. It just took the Red Room cup, you know. Ooh, I mean, what's in there? Because I learned so many, now with the samplers and stuff, when I do string arrangements and I have these great string samples of real orchestra sounds, or I have a real trombone in the sampler, what I can do in the keyboard has a lot to do with what I learned playing the instrument. Like I could play a little bit of cello, but not very good. I could play a little bit of trombone, but not very good.
But you can play that on the keyboard, and now
because I know how to do it the way I would do it if I could play the instrument better. So, you know,
what are your let's kind of head down that path. Like, we are in Silicon Valley. This is like the tech central hub, like, of the world. Yeah. Auto-tune was literally created in Scotts Valley, you know, over the hill by me.
Yeah.
Like, kind of coming from that era, like, and seeing where the technology kind of weaved into music. What are your like big, like, whoa, that's a really cool moment, seeing like tech kind of blending in with music to where it is now. Right. I think like Melodyne, for example, is one of those, you know, things that's like super cool, you know, and unique, you know. But what were those moments?
There's so many of them. In the early days, before I was playing with Emerson, Lake and Palmer guys, where they had the big Moog synthesizer, my dad had Thomas organs. They put a Moog into their organ. First company to ever do that. Wow. So I got a little Moog. So when Hush played, we could do a song called Lucky Man that goes doo-woo-woo with the Moog sound, right?
Yeah.
That was like, wow, the Moog. I mean, I actually had a little one, and that was getting big.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Emu, which was in Scotts Valley, crossed the freeway, though, from UA, made something called an emulator. That was the first sampler that on a floppy disk, it would record violins and flutes.
Wow.
So I got one of those, used that.
I did not know that was created over in Scotts Valley.
The emulator. Wow. Look, and they went big all, you know, even Keith had an emulator 3 by the time 3, my band with him, had their record. Emulator started. Prophet 5, the reason that the Moog played one note at a time was a problem. The Prophet 5 developed in San Jose, played 5 notes at a time. synthesizer, and there was high quality. Huge stuff for keyboard players because we can only play piano or organ to play more than one note.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, with a synthesizer, wow, you could do all that. Designed here. There was another company called Buchla, which was from here, which is a synthesizer company early on, like with Moog and stuff. So much was made here and designed here, it's hard to believe. UA is in Scotts Valley, United Audio. They have all kinds of recording stuff. It's amazing what they do. There's another, Digi Design, if I could get my mouth to work, which is Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Design right down the street. And I went to a guy's house.
When did that come out? What year was that?
I actually don't know.
Yeah.
See, that's looking back. I don't.
Yeah. It was cool because I know there's there's Pro Tools and then you have like Logic from Apple, but you use Pro Tools. Pro Tools. That's considered industry standard
for the world.
For the world, yeah.
But Digi Design started with something early on that sounded so terrible. It was so grainy and so digital sounding, And I got to see in the guy's house. I went, I'd never use that. I mean, I use tape. It sounds so nice and smooth.
Yeah.
And little by little, they developed it. They didn't give up on it. They got investment. And they got to the point where I went, oh, I like that Britney Spears sound. That's done on Pro Tools. It was a little more plastic, kind of immediate. So I got the system, got Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And I still had all the tape-based stuff, got a Pro Tools, which was, like I say, designed down the street. Guitar Player Magazine, a Keyboard Player Magazine was down on Stevens Creek originally. Those are big publications. So that's part of the music world too. I know there's something else that was done here that was really big. But I mean, so much innovation came from here. And you know that we were the Valley of Heart's Delight, all the fruit for the world back in the 40s and 50s, I guess it was. And we developed things like the three-legged ladder here. That's how inventive we were. So you can get up on the fruit tree because the four-legged ladder, you couldn't get it in there.
Yeah.
I know this stuff.
Yeah. So what was, you get Pro Tools, what was like the learning curve going from like having, all of the old like boxes and everything like that to now it's here on the computer. What was that like?
Interesting because I told you I like to build speaker cabinets
and you can
guitars.
still integrate the old stuff with Pro Tools too. Do you still or is it just kind of like there?
I can, but now it's just there. I got a new the latest Pro Tools. I said, this sounds so good, forget it. I'm cutting the wires and, that way no one says, can you do 2-inch tape? I go, nope.
No.
The machine is still there though.
Yeah.
It's sitting there, paperweight.
Yeah.
It sounds so good in digital now. It's got everything that analog ever had, even though some purists will say that. I have an old Neve console from 1972. That is the tone right there. That's the analog warmth and everything. So that gets put into Pro Tools and it captures it perfectly. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
The learning curve for Pro Tools I thought was going to be really hard because I'm not a computer guy at all. Emails, I could send files off. Yeah, that's about it. It took me about 2 weeks. And people go, oh my God, you are an expert at that. Well, the stuff I do with it is I'm an expert at, but I don't go into really super deep.
Yeah.
I use it as a tape recorder.
Yeah.
I can edit, I can make things out of nothing. I really know how to use it. But it was intuitive and fairly simple. And once you figure out that every time you start a session, you have to build it. It's not like you come in and there's your board, there's your tape recorder, you turn it on. You have to put all the channels and all the reverb sends and all the stuff, assign it to where it's going to come from the microphone. But after I got past that, 2 weeks, I was up and running. In fact, I had a system at the studio and I bought another system at home. And
you could send files and like work at home if you wanted to keep.
So I could work at home at night because I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I did the first December People album, which is a holiday thing at home. I did the drums at the studio, did everything else at home, and all the vocals, everything in my guitar room I had, and I just loved it. No one saw me for months.
Yeah. That's cool. So let's talk about your album that's coming out. Let's kind of start from like song creation. Yeah. Are you a let's do lyrics first kind of guy, or are you a let's create the track first and then come up with the lyrics kind of guy, or maybe there's another option that you do? How do you kind of like start and then go from there?
We've done some songs together.
Yeah.
So that they mean something to me. Like one of my favorite all-time sessions, not because I'm with you, but New Kid in Town is like, well, I said, you need to do all these vocals, right? And it's 10, 12 vocals, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's your voice is so good anyway. It's just amazing.
Stop it.
No, but it's amazing. I think it's an amazing track, and really, those ideas just kind of come to me.
Yeah.
And it's because I do at least 100 songs like that every year. I used to do 5 days a week the whole year. I try to back off on that. It was too much.
Yeah.
I did for 15, 20 years, did 5 songs a week.
Wow.
Right? And people, because I had so much business for that, then I started doing a lot more mixing. Once the Pro Tools really got going at everything, people wanted me to mix the records. So that takes a couple of weeks each album.
Yeah.
But when I need to write a song, and actually that's the key right there. I need to write one because I have an album I need to do. Now, I write titles. You see in my phone, I have titles on my notes to go with nothing underneath them.
Yeah.
But the things like, it's the red room, but that's green on your, interesting.
Yeah.
The green slant to the red room.
You
right?
know,
I put that down.
You know who else does that too? I watched a 60-minute interview with Eminem.
Oh, yeah.
And he was sitting there and he's like, he just would have his like a notepad in his pocket. He would walk around that all day and he would think like something would come to his head and he would write it down and he'd be like, and he had like a whole box of these ripped off notes.
Yeah.
And he started flipping through them and he's like, oh, I may actually use that for a track. Is that kind of like the same thing with you? Is he like, are you thinking of like maybe a melody comes to your head and you're like, oh man, and that's what I love about the iPhone. Like I'll do the same thing too, where I'll hit the little record feature and be like da 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 or whatever.
The problem for me with the melodies is I have 100 of those on my phone. I never listen to them because when I get the words, I sit down like with you.
Yeah.
It means something. I don't know why. It goes into the computer and it comes out. I don't think about it. It just something happens. But it's from all those songs, all the different kinds of music. It just means something to me when I hear a certain song. And, I do a lot of artists that have acoustic guitar and they'll sing it. I go, oh my God, that should be, and they'll go, oh, you get it.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know why, but yeah. And I had somebody come in, I'm doing an album for Kay Bowler right now. She's a blues singer. And she goes, I want it to be a little bit different. I said, well, Kay, I've been listening to a couple of your songs. You sent me the roughs. I said, if we took your blues, we put a little bit of Steely Dan, a little bit of that jazzy kind of thing in there. She goes, that's exactly what I want to do. I said, and I don't know why it meant that when I heard her voice, but and we've done that, and it's really going to be a superb album, So I write titles down a lot, then I go back and I'll write lyrics for what the title meant to me. And then when I need to do an album, I go back to those. But I never use the ones that I hum into the phone. I've never used a melody at all because I don't know why, It's a place and time. I always tell people, I used to do an album, like every day I'd do a song for them. There were 2 weeks where to do 10 songs. I see now that every day we're a little bit different person and they're different especially. I can bring it in and keep the style going if I have to.
Yeah.
But I said, I prefer you come in once a week or every other day or something because you're always a different person and you're in a different mood, something else going on. It'll keep it fresh. So that's part of my working flow. I don't have a good answer.
Yeah. No, I think I get where you're coming from as a creative. It's you have to be inspired within like that moment. And then there's just this energy, I feel like, that kind of like goes through you where it's like, it's this wave of energy.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's like,
definitely.
you got to definitely catch the wave, surfing pun, but like, and then you're just riding that and you just go with it. And I think that's what's exciting about just like the arts in general is it's that rush of like, wow, this is, like, you know what I mean? But it's like, it's that excitement and everything. Yeah, no, you're
I'm going to say,
it's those acacia trees, man. I get it too.
And the rain has stirred up the pollen. If you said, oh my God, we haven't been recording, we need to start this over. Let me ask you the same question. I'd be, okay, I'd answer it for you. But it wouldn't have, I'm really enjoying this, right? I like you. You're a talented guy. I like your family. You're part of the valley here. It's exciting for me. It's fun. But if we had to repeat it, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And I think it's that kind of attitude that makes it where you got to do the same thing. You know, a bunch of times it doesn't, the excitement that you mentioned, you know, that is fresh.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So yeah, your album, let's talk about that. Like, so what's it called? And like, what are you, how many songs are you doing? And like, where are people going to be able to like listen and check it out?
you know, I have a couple things going on. My newest band, whose album came out the end of last year, 6x6, has done very well. We've been together 3 years now, and that's a guitar player from a band called Saga, which was really big in the 80s, and he is one of the top 10 guitar players in the world. He's Ian Crichton. He's fantastic.
That's cool.
I'm really excited about that album. But, of course, that album ran its course now for the launch because that's what things do. What we haven't talked about is after the band with Keith and Carl, called 3, ended, Sammy Hagar went to Van Halen, and Geffen wanted me to replace Sammy Hagar in Sammy Hagar's old band. And I was in England, so I couldn't do it. When I came back, Sammy needed a bass player. So I joined Sammy Hagar for 3 years, 2.5, playing bass at the NAMM show, Cabo, a couple of concerts and stuff, which was incredible because no pressure on me. I just played bass. Sam was the front man. He's the guy who had to get the gigs. He had to write the song. He did everything. And I got to learn these great songs of his, right? At that time, his band still wanted to get together. So we formed a band called Alliance, which is Gary Peel, who plays in the band Boston. He's a guitar player for Boston. David Lauser, who was Sammy's drummer all those years.
Wow.
And at the time, Alan Fitzgerald, who was Night Ranger's keyboard player.
Yeah.
Alan has since retired, so it's just Gary, David, and I now. But that album is out right now. So Alliance, this year, it's an Alliance album.
Wow.
And we're with a new record company out of Italy called Frontiers. They're doing a great job. The album comes out March 26th or 28th. The single.
That's coming up.
Coming up.
Yeah,
But the 2 singles, one came out in February.
Yeah.
One came out last week. Nothing can make you change. Nothing will make you change.
Yeah.
I look back. They're talking to me about this awards show they want me to be involved in. I have like 30 albums out. They're like, what did you do on this one? I can't remember all the songs I've done, right? I can't remember the ones I have out now. But Alliance is out. It's doing pretty well. We don't have the views yet because that single just came out a few days ago.
Yeah.
It's at 5,000 or something. We'd like to get 50,000, and then it makes a little bit of impression. One of the funny things I was going to tell you about when you're asking about In the Valley, I was producing an album for a client whose husband was a venture capitalist. And you talk about things that became big, and she goes, there's this thing that my husband's investing in where it's going to recommend music. You should send some songs, you get involved in it. I said, recommend, like if you like Bryan Adams, and then you sound like Bryan Adams, or you like Eminem, who's one of my favorites, by the way. I love his stuff.
Yeah.
He is so musical. If you like that, it'll recommend you. I said, God, that's interesting. Totally ignored it. Well, when Pandora came out and blew up big, I went, I could have been at the ground level. My songs, my albums in there. And of course, it would have been spread all over the world. And I totally passed it up. But that was designed here in the Valley,
Yeah.
Of course, all that stuff is also the death of music, Spotify and Pandora and all that.
Yeah.
It's we can't monetize our music anymore.
Yeah, that whole streaming thing. That's a whole other conversation too.
Yeah.
You just hear stories about it, I think kind of one of the things going off of that's a little like, you see these ads where it's like, and no disrespect to Taylor, but it's like, Taylor Swift just blew the Beatles out with this new thing. And with this new record. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, everyone's like, congrats, Taylor. Da, 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 da. Again, no hate against Taylor. She's great. Yeah. But we have technology now that the Beatles did not have back then to really like get it out to people, like the streaming services where I can just pull up my phone. I didn't have to like go and, put a record on and like find, you know what I mean? Yeah. So like that kind of thing too, it's the whole streaming thing's interesting.
There should be a weighted curve as far as awards, right?
Yes.
She's done a lot of
Filters.
things. She's done a lot of things like re-record all her albums so the record company didn't steal all the profit.
I was happy that she's
she's done a few things,
taking her power back.
Yeah, and really tipping the truck drivers and stuff, and $100,000. I mean, she's done some great stuff. The problem is that nobody seems to be able to go up against Spotify and the streaming. When we had iTunes and it was 99 cents a song, we all thought, oh my God, that's terrible. Well, wait a minute. We used to get a 12 to 15% royalty on a $12 to $20 record. Mm-hmm. And in iTunes, we got like 60 cents a song to the artist.
Yeah.
We did a lot better with iTunes. If they would have kept that model, we would have been fine, because then everybody had to, for 99 cents, everybody could buy your song. Mm-hmm. If they would have kept it, it'd be fine. But no, they give it away for 0.001% of a penny. Mm-hmm. And Peter Frampton got 6 million plays and got $600 or $6,000. I mean, nothing, So anyway, we're getting off the subject here, but somebody needs to cure that problem. And I don't know how they're going to cure it, but they have to, because unless you tour and charge at least $150 a ticket, if you have a 5,000-seater, you can't make any money. Mm-hmm. And we can't keep going on like that.
Yeah. Yeah. What are the new artists that are out right now that you think are like pretty cool? You like Post Malone, Dua Lipa, Ed Sheeran, any of these people?
Yeah. I like pretty much everything that's not repetitive. What's there's a new girl out that's doing really well, but it sounds like 70s disco to me, or kind of pop stuff. I'm like, well, that's weird that's. Yeah. But I forget, she's like a short little blonde girl. You probably know her name.
Oh, Sabrina Carpenter?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's 70s disco. And go, okay, well, it's time, I guess. But and she's good. Yeah. Really good.
Yeah. They've been blowing her up. They've been blowing her up in the media. It's kind of like, Taylor's still up there, but I feel like this Sabrina Carpenter is kind of like that next wave coming, kind of in that same kind of vein, But yeah, it is interesting hearing, all the new songs, like, for example, there's I like the EDM genre, and there's a real famous DJ, his name's David Guetta. He's recycled so many of the old songs with like new artists, like when EDM music first came out, and you're like, oh, it's like they did they had this blue da ba dee ba doo da. It was like 90s, and then he just totally remixed it with like new lyrics and everything like that. So we're kind of sitting here, and I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, okay, I respect David and what he does, but like I want like something new. You know what I mean?
Well, sort of like movies. So I'd be remaking a movie of the different.
How many Star Wars movies are we gonna do? Or Indiana Jones? It's all of that. Yeah. It's all of that. But
I got to tell you, I've never. In my car in high school, I had Jeff Beck, Blow by Blow. I had Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life, and I had one other. I forget what it is now, and that was it. I've never bought an album since 8th grade, let's say.
Wow.
I don't buy music now, because every week someone comes in and says, "Oh, here's Sabrina Carpenter. I want to, I do a lot of young girls pop tracks, because I can, and their dads know me, and they say, oh, I know he'll do a good job. If he says he can do it, he'll do it, and it's not that hard, because all that is computerized. It's sampled drums, all this stuff. It's actually easy, easier than doing a pop rock session. Let's say we got to play everything and make it happen. But I don't buy any music, because I just listen to what they bring in, and I absorb that, and then I listen to their song, and I think, well, you're not that, but you might be this, or we could combine this. Maybe you're this, or it goes in the computer and comes out as something. And so I don't listen to music. My wife has a photographic memory for lyrics and music. Yeah, she can't take a test, but she can remember all that. Rebecca remembers a hip hop song the first time she hears it. Yeah. I can't remember my own songs. It makes me mad. But I can't have the radio on when we're driving somewhere, because I have music all day long, 5 days a week, and then I'm touring. It's even worse. Yeah. It's just too much for me.
Yeah, I needed time to just kind of just chill out. That makes sense. That makes sense. That's actually so interesting. I've like never heard of that before. It's like for doing like the whole real estate stuff. It's like a lot of like, crunching things and all this. And then it's like, okay, I need a moment to kind of like listen to music. And then yours is like, I do so much. Sometimes I just need to like turn off everything and just relax.
I call you at 6 o'clock.
Though.
Blake,
Yeah.
hey, Blake. Hey, Robert, what's going on? I said, well, I've been in a session all day, but I wanted to ask you about some real estate stuff. You're like, oh, great. Well, I'm off work, man. I don't want to talk about real. I got guys saying, hey, man, after this, why don't you come by and jam? Last thing I want to do is play music right now. I love doing music, right? But oh God, it's too much.
Well, Mr. Robert Berry, this has been fun, man.
Thank
you so much for coming on, dude.
Man.
I appreciate it.
I knew we'd talk too much. We get along too well.
This is great. So, real quick, kind of like in closing out. So, when your album does come out, where can people find it? I'll put like the link below so people can go and listen to your stuff.
Alliance will be available everywhere, and Spotify, Amazon. 6x6, last year's album, which is still doing really well, is available. All the same thing.
Yeah, I'll put all the links below.
Yeah, they're available everywhere. We have an Alliance website, but it's alliance.band because there's an Alliance, maybe real estate. There's all kinds of alliances, right?
Yeah.
So alliance.band, or, they can go to robertberry.com.
Cool.
That's the easy one.
Awesome. And also, if you're an up-and-coming singer and you need to put a real good thing together, this is the man to do it.
You never know.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Fantastic,
Appreciate
man.
it.
I loved it.
All right, everyone. You have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever you are. Take care. We'll see you next time. Woo!